Okay, first things first, Second Empire episode 10. At this very moment it has 6 shots left. And, yes, 6 shots left, and I've got about 4 hours left on one of them. So that should be done within a week or so. And then I've got a little bit of editing to do with it, some After Effects work. I might have to re-edit a couple of bits, because the way I tend to work is I animate and render it as it appears in the comic, unless changes are apparent during animation, and there's no point really doing anything else. Sorry, that didn't make sense. I tend to work... The way I work is I animate it as the comic is, unless it's glaringly obvious that something does need changing, and then I don't even bother doing it as the comic, I do it as the way that it'd be improved. After that, I've got the, as some of you have guessed, the Daleks that I posted on a little video are the Cult of Skaro, but Megmaster versions. There was a version of them that I had done, but I redid them because there was a trouble with the scaling, because all Megmaster's Daleks are scaled by 10, so all you have to do is add a 0 or take a 0 off, and it scales it appropriately. So that helps when you put them in ships to make them that big, or if you're putting them on the ground to make them a bit bigger, or if you want to make something even bigger, like the Siege Lord would be that big and the Dalek would be about that big. Also on the 3D front, I now have a viable way of doing human rigs. What that means is the bones and everything to get people working, so I could take a 3D model like this and actually animate it. The only problem is, obviously, if I did something like this, it would be easier, but with the human rigs, it's like, right, you know the way your hand move, like skin moves, you've got to, there's 3 joints, 1, 2, 3, so like this joint affects a certain area, this one another area. That's called weight mapping, and well, in Cinema 4D it is. I think it's referred to as influences in like Maya or 3ds Max. At the minute I'm trying to rig Davros because he's the simplest model. He's only got 1 arm and obviously his head and all that. But at the minute, when I move his head, side to side is alright. There's a little bit of tearing down here, but when I move that, this whole section comes up, and I'm having trouble figuring out like the percentages and stuff. But I'm hoping that means I can now do humanoid animations. It does mean that the Zello there's not, the green gelatinous blob, is going to be easier to do, because he's more of a cartoony, so it doesn't really matter if it's flopping all over the place. It is actually amazing how making a breakthrough like that, because the rigging system that is on Cinema 4D that I didn't even know existed, you can do Biped, Advanced Biped, which has, I think, a bit more flexibility and controls, Quadruped, so like cats, horses, lions, tigers, that sort of thing, reptiles, fish, birds, and then it has elements for claws, wings, beaks. Doesn't do facial animation, which is something I've got to learn how to do. But with Davros, the mutated, sorry, the older one, I'm thinking, because he's kind of sat in his chair like this with his hand on one hand on his control. I'm thinking that because he's so old, I'm going to make his movements very, very limited. Like his whole head is actually in a neck brace, and it's actually attached to the back of his chair. So maybe he can't really do much than that because he is ancient. At one point the Emperor says. He's got a voice synthesizer here, so maybe his mouth would move ever so slightly. It sounds like a cheaty way, but if he was young, then I'd have to go the whole route. But I don't want to have him kind of like, let's go explore the city, and, you know, you there, what is this, and, you know, that sort of thing. No, he's an old, the most active thing is his brain. he doesn't really care about mobility, although he has got a pretty cool travel machine. Yes, so I mean, I did want to do something. I'm still toying with this idea to maybe introduce the Doctor into Second Empire. I'm not sure if I'll do that yet. The way I'd do it, if I did, I'd start it off again. I wouldn't try and make it a Doctor from the series, although there would be, it wouldn't be totally different, like a female Doctor. No, wouldn't be that. Okay, next, streaming. For those of you who've been following my streams, I've been trying to do them and somewhat failing. I've got the quality sorted out, but my last live stream was an animation session which I was hoping to go for 2 hours, but for some reason it suddenly stopped working about half an hour in, and I didn't notice for another 25 minutes. I was there talking to myself. So I need to get a better way of monitoring it, because the way I tend to do it, if I'm streaming games, I watch on my Mac, and if I'm streaming on my Mac, I watch on PC. And the PC didn't come up with any problems. It said I was still online. Yeah. So I do want to do more gameplay. Because I think that's going to be a better thing, because if I'm doing it live, then I can have a little bit more interaction, and it's just not going to be me talking to myself. Saying that, I am about to record a game in AVP. And animation, obviously, I'm a little bit wary about what to do, because animation by its nature is very boring and tedious. Like, I wouldn't show After Effects work, although every now and then I do watch a stream where people are literally just colouring in shadows and doing that, and if I can find someone to like multi-stream with, or have on chat, like Skype or something, so we can have a bit of banter going, I think that'd be more watchable, don't you? As always, any ideas and suggestions are more than welcome. I'm getting a bigger workspace soon in the form of a larger shed, so I can actually have this as a bedroom again, and not as an office sort of thing. So I'm going to have a lot more room to work, and that's going to mean more opportunities to do things. One of the things I wanted to do, if you lot would be interested, is do more creative videos, as in like making models. So I make all these Gundam models. This one was not finished yet, not by a long shot. But would you guys be interested in watching that? The camera would be like over my shoulder, and I'd be talking about it, or it'd be a time lapse if it was a complicated model. And like, well, it's like maybe making some other stuff, doing some drawings and that sort of thing. Lastly, I've decided to bring back the Facebook group, but not for Second Empire, but for the whole Dark Raven Productions thing. So that link will be in the description. It's also on the channel. Yeah, so that's just going to be a place where I can put like still images, short updates, announcements, news, that sort of thing. Also, I'll post like images. Artwork will stay on my DeviantArt, although I haven't really done much of that lately. I need to get back into doing that. So yeah, just if you want to like it, show your friends, show your family. Okay, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to give a release date for episode 10. I would like to get it done before I go to a convention in a couple of weeks, but it all depends how much editing the actual episode needs. I'm not going to rush it. If it's not done in a couple of weeks, it will be maybe the beginning of June, second week in June. Okay, that's everything. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll have a video out for you soon.